Hello everybody, welcome to Flakpanzer's channel, and in this video I'm going to be going over all of the Russian tanks and all of their strengths and weaknesses for the tanks. First tank we're going to go over is the um, T28 Model 1937 tank for the Soviets. This tank is a machine gun tank. It's the starter tank. It has very poor elevation and depression under its tank when you go in to zoom in under this tank. It has fairly strong armor on the top section up here. Can't be shot very easily by enemy tanks. Its sides are weak. Its lower plate is weak. This particular tank does very well for infantry support. It's made for one person. And it also can float. It does actually have a propeller in the back and can be used as a boat tank. If this tank is in the water, it cannot be shot by rockets in its body of its tank. The only thing available is the turret. The turret moves semi-slow, not meant for really lots of movement. It's just a slow first-tier tank for the Soviets. This particular tank is very useful if you plan on upgrading to meet the second tier, third tier, fourth tier tank. Everything you do with this particular tank does go towards the armor assault ribbon, which is this ribbon right here. This ribbon, every single kill you get, whether it's infantry kill, jeep kill, APC kill, bike kill, everything goes towards the armor assault. So this particular tank will unlock every tank that you have available for the Soviet side. So be aware to use this tank to the best of your abilities, because you will gain better tanks along the way. It does have an upgrade feature for its ammo. You can get the armor piercing. I believe this is the upgraded ammo, the B30 armor piercing. It does a little bit more damage. This tank is not designed to take out the second tier or third tier tanks of the enemy factions. Stay away from those, though this is not its purpose. Its purpose is to kill infantry and any light armor vehicle that's on the battlefield. Moving on to the next tier tank, if you want to buy it, it's the T26 Model 1933. This tank has poor armor in the front. It's mediocre on the middle section of its armor. Its top armor is pretty bad. It doesn't have armor on the sides. This tank does have the ability to raise its cannon about 47 degrees. So if you want to use this as an anti-air tank, you can use that because it has a very high elevation. It does use a 45mm cannon, but this tank is extremely slow. So be aware of that. It does not have a gunner seat. No secondary gunner seat for this particular tank. If you do end up killing tanks with this, you will gain armor assault, but only from enemy tanks will you gain any sort of armor assault. This tank does come with AP, APCR, and HE. It does also have a machine gun, which I believe was 7.762 DT. So every tank that the Soviets have is armor-piercing bullets. Moving on to the next tank, and I do have that one. It's going to be your BT-7. Now the BT-7 comes with APCR rounds and HE. It has poor armor in the front. It has poor armor on the sides, on both sides, and on the back. It is considered a light tank. It has semi-good armor under its turret. This is an extremely fast tank, probably called the Ferrari of tanks in the game. It is narrow, so be aware that you're not on a hill and turning, because you will flip this tank. I do recommend not poking your head out of the top because people will see you and shoot you. There's not much protection for the tanker. It does have a secondary slot for another person in the tank to carry, but there is no gunner seat for this particular tank. It runs a 45 millimeter cannon and a 7.62 DT armor-piercing rounds. Moving on to the next tank, we have the T70. I do have that tank as well. The T70 comes with APCR rounds and HE. It does not have a gunner seat. It has poor armor on the lower part, but its middle section armor is fairly strong. You can take a couple of hits from enemy tanks of its same class. Tier 4 class, you can take a couple of hits, but don't expect to take many. If you do have APCR rounds and HE, be aware that this tank has a longer timer. For if you die, you'll have to wait. If you didn't come in as a tanker, you'll have to wait for a little bit to be able to spawn another one. It does have a 45 millimeter cannon, just like the other tanks. It does have a 7.62 millimeter machine gun. It is a fairly small tank, no bigger than a Gaz, so it excels in that particular department. And you can get camos if you like on it as well. The next tank that we're going to be going over is under the medium class. So the first tank available is the T28 Model 1934. This tank is an interesting tank. It has poor armor on the front lower plate, but its middle sections where its gunners are is fairly strong. Its gun port is fairly strong as well. It has a short barrel, very short, and makes this particular very particular gun sound whenever you fire the main cannon. This tank, believe, has 4 gun seats, three gun seats, and the tanker has his own gun seat. So 4 main machine gun guns. The driver has one, and then there's 3 others that all have 7.62 millimeter DT armor-piercing rounds. 2 gunners up front, the tanker has a gunner, and then there's 1 in the back. This tank is extremely long compared to every other tank that exists. It is very slow on the battlefield for movement speed, but where it excels is the fact that there's lots of gunners, lots of people around you. It is an infantry support type tank that has APCR and HE for its tank. Moving on to the next tier tank, and I believe I have that one as well. This will be the T34-76 tank. This is a very good tank with infantry support. The lower plate is its weakness. The middle section is fairly strong, and its cannon is fairly strong as well. It has poor armor on the sides and in the back, so if you want to shoot this area, it's fairly strong to shoot. Its tracks are vulnerable if you shoot the tracks. Where this tank excels is the fact that its gunner seat, where it does have a 7.62 millimeter DT gunner, the gunner does not pop out up the top of the tank, it pops out the front. So what the gunner can do is he can sit in the tank, and if he's in voice comms with his tanker, he can scroll out, only the head pops out through the front on the hatch, and he can see 360 degrees around the tank in third-person view. The tanker, if he pops out the top, he has a front-facing shield that he can use, but his head is off to the side, so be aware that you are vulnerable as a tanker to get shot. This tank comes with APCR rounds and HE. If you do die with this tank multiple times, your timer will not go through the roof. Same thing goes with the T28 Model 1934. If you die multiple times, you will not have a timer if you die those times. Now, moving on to the next tier tank, which is the T3485 Model 1944. This tank comes with APCR and HE. Now, the APCR rounds is very strong. This tank has an 85 millimeter cannon. It does come with HE as well. Its lower plate where this metal track is fairly weak, but if you hit it where the gun port is, it is very strong. The gunner will pop out the top of the tank, unlike the T-34-76. The tanker will pop out the top. It does have external fuel tanks, so if you shoot these, the tank will start to take more damage. These tanks are viable to get shot by small arms fire, so be aware you can start taking more damage if you are shot by infantry and taking out your fuel tanks. Its rear, the sides are fairly. Sorry, I was gonna sneeze. The sides are fairly weak, and its back is weak. Its gun breech is in the front, and its gun barrel is off to the side, right in front. But it's very difficult to hit if you don't have a strong tank on the enemy side to destroy it. If you do die in this particular tank, you will have a timer if you didn't come in as a tanker. If you did come in as a tanker, I believe there's a short timer for this particular tank, since this is the top tier tank for the Soviet class under the medium tanks. Moving on to the tank destroyers under the Soviet side. Your first tier medium destroyer is the Su-76M. This particular tank has been nerfed under its health. At this point in time, has the health pool of a light tank. The lower plate, this section right here, and this section right here where the name is fairly weak. If you should get shot in here, you'll get engine destroyed, transmission destroyed every single time. Protect this lower section and you'll have a blast with this tank. This upper section right here and where the gun breech is fairly strong and very hard to penetrate. If you do get hit in this section up here, you will not take any damage. It will just say mantle damage every single time, which takes away from your frontal armor, and good luck getting through this tank. This is a very strong tank on the upper section. It has APCR rounds, HE rounds. It's fairly nimble on the battlefield for its movement speed, but don't think of it as the BT-7, as it will not travel that particularly fast. It does have a significant sound whenever it does fire, unique to this particular tank. Moving on to the Su-85. Now the Su-85 has very poor lower plate and will be damaged very easily, but its gun breech is right in the center and it's very difficult to hit. You have to hit the exact center, make sure the tank is actually looking at you. Its gun barrel is about this section right here where it meets the front mantle. Kind of difficult to hit unless you hit it from the side. Its side compartment over here is where its ammo racks are. Its transmission is about in this section. It does have external fuel tanks, but this tank can take a lot of hits before it ends up getting destroyed. Only front cannon does not have a turret. It does come with APCR rounds and HE, and if you die multiple times in this tank, you will not have a spawn timer. So you can die multiple times with this particular tank. It does have an 85mm gun, same as the T-34-85, but unlike the T-34-85, this is a tank destroyer, so it does a little bit more damage than the T-34-85. Now moving on to the heavy tanks. Under the heavy tanks, you do have the KV-85. Now the KV-85 is basically the same gun as the T-34-85. The only difference is that you have more health pool because it's considered under the heavy tanks. This tank does have poor lower plate armor, but fairly strong on the upper plate. Very strong under the cannon, hard to gun breech, hard to gun barrel. It does have some external fuel tanks, but they're not very significant. Poor armor in the back. Where this tank is interesting is the fact that its gunner seat has a rear-facing gun seat, so don't try to approach this tank from the rear if you're anti-tank, because the tanker can just switch to his gun seat and shoot you. So just be aware that this tank is not approachable from the rear. If you're an anti-tank infantry, try and approach it from the sides. Moving on to the heavy tank, and probably the best tank for close quarter combat under the heavy tank class, is the IS-2, model 1944. The IS-2 has very strong armor on the top section. Its lower plate is fairly weak. Its gun breech doesn't exist. The gun barrel is off to the side, but good luck hitting that. The gas tanks are on the sides, and they're fairly small, so they don't do much damage. The tracks are available to hit. Try and get the tank to turn so that you can hit the side of the turret. This tank has APCR rounds. It only comes with 28 rounds per slot, so I recommend using APCR rounds for both first and second slots, because you only have 28 rounds. You're probably going to run out of APCR rounds before killing enemy tanks. This is a very good tank to take out enemy Tigers at close quarter combat. Don't try and take out Tigers at long ranges, or for jumbos, or for Pershings. This is made to be up close and personal with the enemy tanks so that you can do maximum amount of damage with this particular tank. Now, moving on to the last tier tank, which is the heavy destroyer, and that one is the SU-100. The SU-100 does not currently come with any sort of camo available. This tank is the same class as the SU-85, but has a stronger frontal armor. Everything about the SU-85, this tank has the same, but the cannon is a 100mm round. This tank does massive damage to every single tank in the game. The other class tank destroyers from other factions, they don't do the same amount of damage that this particular tank does. Because of the 100mm round, it does massive damage. You have a double zoom feature under this tank. Unlike the other two heavy tanks of the Soviet Union, they do not have a double zoom feature. This is the only tank that has a double zoom feature for the tank. Pretty good movement speed for this particular tank. Lower plate is vulnerable. Middle plate is fairly strong. The side aspect is fairly weak. External fuel tanks is weak and can be shot with small arms fire. Rear of the tank is weak. The tracks are weak. If you get shot in the track, you'll be tracked. I recommend using this tank with APCR rounds and HE. If you do get shot in this tank, you will have a timer with it. The same thing goes with the IS-2. If you get shot in the IS-2, your tank will have a huge timer, so don't get shot. Make sure that you have infantry support with your tanks, as they if you have long timers, because you will not be able to spawn another one anytime soon. I hope this was informative and you enjoyed this video. Please make sure you subscribe and like this video, so I will be posting more and more videos for you. And I will be going over the other factions tanks in the near future, so make sure you check those videos out too. If you have any questions, please make sure you come and see me on my Twitch channel of Flak_Panzer, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.